Yeah, I think a lot of people do, right?
Words.
Yeah, yeah, the words,
No
yeah,
value.
meaningless, right? Meaningless. Jason, tell me when I should, when I sh-
Maybe let's see. Let's give them because we said 115, didn't we?
Oh, I
So
did say 115, didn't I? That
I
was a
think so.
mistake.
So
Yeah.
so
Ah,
I
okay.
mean you maybe we start getting set up and
Yeah.
and then they'll trickle in.
How long can you stay?
I can stay till like 3.
Okay, because I think I told Stefan my train is for 5.
Okay.
So we could go to 4 if people are like
Yeah.
really. It'll take me probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes to pack up, and then.
Yeah.
So I'm here. It's
Yeah.
like 3 o'clock is.
Sure.
That was just the rough.
I'm happy to stay as long as
Are
it's.
you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was planning for 3, but it wasn't really totally clear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll get. Yeah.
it's fine. I'm happy to stay.
I'll pay you overtime.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's contemporary jazz,
Yes.
right? Well, this piece shows up in a very known. There's a very well-known electric guitar piece where it shows up. Yeah, so I mean, depending on the razor you use, it can be pretty wild.
Yeah.
There.
Planning to demonstrate all of this?
Yeah, a lot of it.
It would be really interesting.
What do you use for the Romatelli?
For Metallic, yeah, the original.
Like this?
Yeah. I think I have
This
even
is-
have the same, exactly the
Ah,
same.
brown,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have exactly.
Yeah,
the
it's pretty. It's actually pretty mild, right?
same. But maybe with some overdrive actually.
Overdrive,
That's-
yeah.
That's for me better. It's just the part of the line because
Yeah.
it has some loop.
It's nice,
Yeah.
but it's a little cliched.
Yeah, true. Like
Little
Jack
cliched.
Norris,
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I got a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself.
And the triangle and this
Yeah.
plate, how did it work with this piece?
I need a hard mallet, but let me. I'll demonstrate when
Yeah,
I get
sure,
started.
Sure. But it was interesting point.
Yeah. Well, he had the plate here. Yeah, it's fantastic, right? Yeah.
Sound effects.
Yeah. Anyway. I have some of the book manuscript online, hopefully not with dirty comments from our editor. Hi, welcome back. We're fine. I haven't started really, not really. I'm Khan. Greetings. Okay. This will be more about how do I do this? Introducing some of the what I would say essential areas. I should preface whatever happens here. I should preface what the sort of workshop part by saying whatever we do, we are just scratching the surface. Okay? It's really important that everybody understands that. So what do I mean by scratching the surface? It means we're just looking at the tip of this iceberg. This terrain is vast. in a way that it's not so vast for the acoustic guitar. And it's vast because of the market, to a great extent. The market for electric guitars, the market for amplifiers, and the market for anything involving signal processing. So what I don't have drawn for you, and I've spoken about this before in the past, is that I like to see it as a kind of pyramid for me personally. And the pyramid involves 3 points of interaction, free interaction. Point 1 is the instrument, point 2 is the signal processing, and point 3 is the sound projection or amplification. Each of those elements, they're sort of like pillars of some large architecture. And if you treat one, it will influence the other two, and vice versa. So if you start shuttling in and out hardware, whether it be a fuzz box or a chorus, it's going to have a rippling effect. And so it's really important, if you're writing or working with the electric guitar, to bear that in mind. That is, you're always going to have to be adjusting and readjusting in a way that on the acoustic guitar, this concept doesn't really exist unless, you change string gauges or something like that. I mean, it's a banal analogy, but I think this tripartite image is really important to have firmly in your mind. And right now, I'm going to endeavor to kind of introduce each of these elements, knowing though full too well that what I do is only like the Bruchteil. It's only a small snapshot of this very moment in time. I mean, I just played Eisler and Weil with the Concerthaus Orchestra, so I was working with the banjo for an entire week plus. So I'm just coming back to this now. And that means I might bring sort of weird or fresh new ideas to whatever it is I'm looking at today. But it's constantly evolving and shifting. Okay, so nothing is fixed. It's important to know. Good. Having said that, let me go deeper into some of the aspects. We actually have 2 different types of amps here, thanks to the jazz department. There's one amp that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, as we say. That's Redewendung. It's digital, and I'm scared of it, but it's going to come into play at a certain moment, and then this looks like a lovely tube amp, so we can actually do a little bit A-Bing and compare the sound. I brought 2 very different guitars, and I think that this is also a key aspect, and that is what type of guitar is being used, what are the pickups, what are its capabilities, etc., etc. So this is a industry produced but very nice sort of takeoff on a Telecaster, which was very, very it's a very well-known model used in very specific genres mostly. And then this is my kind of main axe, which is odd and different, and it was custom made by a renegade Hungarian emigre who lives outside of Toronto, and he's become super right-wing idiot. So we don't have any contact anymore. But this was made in 12/1/04, And the model, he calls it Zachary, and it's got a special wood of Padua, and there's some things here which are unique. So it's a stark contrast to that, and we'll hear that, okay? On the floor here, and this refers in a way to the charts that I spoke about in terms of signal processing and all the categorization that I mapped out. I tried my best. I have like, and Alexei and Amir know, I have an entire bookshelf of pedals because in part I like to collect things, and in part on occasion I need something very specific for a piece, and so I don't know how much do I have, like 30. I've stopped counting, but I know that I have 5 or 6 different distortion pedals. And what I did is I brought today examples of each general category that I referred to earlier, so we could just get an idea. Now, I know some of you that work with electronic music, I mean, you don't need an explanation of what chorus is or what flange is, but maybe we can hear it in combination with a guitar. Okay, so there's that. And then finally, I have this little table, and of course, again, I have a drawer at home with thousands of little toys and objects, and the foreign objects that we use during performance, because that's part of avant-garde performance and experimental music. And so I brought some devices which I thought I would demonstrate and give you an idea about what certain people have used in the past. I mean, both free improvisers and so-called people interested in notated music. And what else? There are few scores apart from what I showed you earlier. So we could see and refer to some notational ideas. I have two very special, well, one is not so special, the other is pretty special pedal, which I thought I would just quickly institute to demonstrate something. And I have a collection of plectrin, because it actually affects the sound. This becomes for jazzers. I mean, it's all very personal, and I mean, you find that, with every jazz person that I speak to out of the commercial or jazz arena or anything, they're looking for a specific sound, quote unquote. I got to develop my thing, my sound. That often has to do with the kind of plectrum they're using. It's not often like logical, like you would think if you know Pat Metheny's sound. It's warm and large and massive in a way. And he uses really thin picks, which he bends and twists in the most unusual way. And you think, like, what is that all about? How does he get that sound? But, he's been doing it since he's yay big, and he made it his own. So we'll experiment with some of this. And then I think I need your feedback, and maybe you'll engage with me and say, well, what happens if you do X, Y, and Z, and how does that affect our timbre and texture? Okay, so let's see, where do we begin? I think we begin with the guitars, and I'm going to disconnect here because the other instrument has some of the key elements which we need to talk about. This won't work on that stand. It's one of the sort of peculiarities to this construction. I hope, yeah, I got to get another lead here. That's also the peculiarities of this angle cable. Sorry, I'm a little not drunk here, but spastic sometimes. Okay. Let's just talk about some basics. And again, this is one model, okay? We have an infinite number of models. Some of them are solid bodies, some are semi-hollow, some are hollow, some are very specially designed. Let's just cover the basics. I know most of you, some of you know some of the basics, and some of you don't know a damn thing about how these things are constructed. So what's happened over history is that the essentials haven't changed. That's the really odd thing. We have all these amazing designs and colors and experiments with pickups, but the essential elements of an electric guitar have remained the same over 50 years. And they consist, of course, of the tuning knobs and the frets and the fretboard, et cetera, et cetera. But all we're talking about is a slab of wood and pickups in order to sort of transform the signal, right? We're normally talking about knobs. We saw that in the Earl Brown. So back in the 50s, he was looking at knobs, and we have switches. The switches have an effect on the pickups. So on this guitar, which again is a kind of a telly, I'm not even gonna fret really sexy chords, because maybe I'll do some harmonics. Right, this is here our tone control. So let's say Brown would do something like this. Oh, now it needs to be greased up. So it's a filtering device, right? We hear that. Sorry for the distortion. I have nothing on here, so it's just pure guitar. Right? So it could be really sharp, and it can be really sort of mellow. This is pretty jazzy, right? That passes for like almost not West Montgomery, but we're somewhere. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, so then this switch toggles back and forth between the pickups. So now we haven't even heard my most brassy sound. So this would be, that's the back pickup. That's the front pickup. I can activate both by putting in the middle. Front, mid, back. Obviously, if you're playing harmonics, mostly you're wanting to use the back pickup, the bridge, what we call the bridge pickup. Hey, if you want to help me, just say, Seth, you left something out, because he's the expert too. I'm doing okay. And then the thing is that this is a 5-way switch. No, on the Stratocaster, it's 5-way. This is only 3. Sorry, I misspoke. And then you could split. You could go here, 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 and here on a Strat. So actually, there's even more tone colors. I know of one piece that was written by a master student in Berlin where he did this, and he did it rhythmically, and he used one guitar with 5 steps, and it was pretty intense. The only thing is that the guitar it had such poor quality that it was really annoying somehow, but it was very creatively done, and he rhythmicized the switches. So it was quite creative, but you can just work with the switch and the volume knob and already get a fairly broad variety of timbre and texture. This little switch here is a custom-made device, and just either you get what they call, I don't want to get into this because we don't have time for it, either a humbucker, and so what you're doing is you're activating more of the spools, or you get a single coil. So you just hear the. Okay, so the humbucker is fuller. This is a little thinner. Okay, and this is my volume control. So pretty nice sustain on this guitar, right? And so Brown was also working with this, so it's quite nice. Of course, we have our feet, right? So talking about volume. Oh, wait a minute, where am I here? Yeah, here. And the Layla company in Ruhrpott have now set the standard with their volume pedals and their switchers, by the way. So most people tend to want to use the volume pedal, and this is very super sensitive, actually. And the very tricky thing for all of us, especially playing with orchestra and ensemble, is to find the spot which is mezzo forte or find the spot which is forte. Because, I mean, some of it is happening in the right hand, but oftentimes you're like just trying to find an area where you can blend in nicely. But, I've heard situations and I've been in situations myself where I think, okay, I got this all set. And even in the dress rehearsal, everything's going well. And then suddenly in the concert, everybody's giving 10% more. And suddenly the headroom that I gave myself, meaning that extra space to go to fortissimo or fortissimo, is no longer there because the guys and gals behind me are blowing their brains out. So it's tricky territory, but we're, at least for the workshop and next year, we're talking about solo. But this can be beautiful. And in the words of Bill Frisell, the volume pedal is the most important pedal in his arsenal. And in a way, there's some truism in that. I mean, he was a woodwind player. He played clarinet as a child and as a teenager. So you can understand why he might have said something like that. But it is true. You can do amazingly expressive things with this volume pedal. And that depends also on what sort of sustain you have, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm away from the guitar again. Let me talk about just the construction briefly. Again, this guitar has 22 frets. Now, this guitar has 24 frets. For some people, this is not an interesting topic, but for other people, this is really critical because the 22 frets only goes up to the high D. And this then completes the octave, right, from the low E to the high E. And also on some of these instruments that have 22 frets, you'll find, and I mean this applies to this instrument, that playing in the upper register is a little tricky. And on this guitar, I'm not going to plug it in, but you'll see, on this guitar, it's much more aerodynamic. This is like, okay, this isn't a shredder instrument, but I can really work in the upper register much more effectively than I can on that. So again, these instruments weren't designed for people in new art music. They like Marty Friedman used this G&L ASAT. I mean, like he chatted with G&L and had this kind of instrument design. So that tells you something. And Alex, I mean, he built this for me, but he has never heard electric guitar and ensemble before in his life. I mean, he thought it was cool, but this isn't the clientele. So that's the other issue, is that a lot of this machinery is made for people that are, first of all, playing at extremely high levels, volume levels. I mean, we're talking about like 80, 90, 100 plus decibels, okay? And I mean, I can't handle that, even with ear protection. So that's another thing to consider. Okay, so it's like some of it is sensitive, and you can really do fine and subtle things, but in the end, rock and roll has two volume levels, right? Either on or off. And that's it. And I guess certain people in progressive or modern jazz try to open up that spectrum more. I mean, I think about Lyle Mays and Pat Metheny because they always talk about crescendi and decrescendi and kind of building. And I guess if you listen to enough of their recordings, there is that spectrum. So I don't mean to belittle people in the commercial arena, but I mean in comparison to those of us that grew up in the classical Western tradition, it's more terraced, okay? And when we start, I don't know if Alexi had the same experience that I did, but when I started working with all of this, I really felt like there was something rough about it and not fine. But you develop that sensitivity. But I can't. It's not the same. It's not the same than when you're working with an acoustic instrument. And so there's always, once you amplify something and this electricity running through the system, it always has this explosive potential. Okay, so let's see. I talked about 22 frets, 24 frets. I apologize if I start like going on tangents, but it's the way my weird brain operates. I wanted to say one odd thing and maybe demonstrate something here for a minute, just in terms of the contrast. And now you'll hear the difference in sound. Very rough. This only has a volume control knob. Okay, I had long discussions with Alex about this, and I was like, but I want a tone control knob. And at the time, he just wasn't using it. But he said if you roll back a little on the volume, then it kind of softens up a little bit. But he was more, for this model, he was against putting another tone control knob there. So he's kind of softened up, or the other models have them, but so this one doesn't have that option. So that's like something to consider. The setup here is kind of similar to here. I have this possibility to go single coil or double coil. When I talk about double coil, it means there are two sets here of coils. So I can go humbucker or single. That's awful, sorry. Yeah, and then this switch is also going bridge, mid, and neck. So bridge, mid, neck. I'm sorry. You're really unstable right now. Yeah. Okay, what else about the guitar? As you see, this is equipped with a whammy bar. This isn't. And there are a lot of, that's an aesthetic question, A. It's also a question of genre, B. It's entirely a question of the bridge and the bridge and tuning system. And Michelle and I talk a bit about the different systems. I would say, is it safe to say, any system that has a whammy bar is inherently less stable than if you just have a block here. And where that might be applicable is if you start detuning certain strings during performance, you're going to get a rippling effect throughout the entire scordatura. And if I start detuning certain strings here, the guitar will tend to remain a little bit more stable. So, and that's because this thing is floating. It's floating on springs. And so, like you changing the tension here, it affects what's happening up here. Is that, I mean, that basic concept should be clear. Um, so somebody says, "Well, I need a whammy bar." Well, then you need an instrument that has a whammy system. A Les Paul, which is also an iconic electric guitar used by Jimmy Page and used by many guitarists throughout history, that does not have a whammy bar. You know, and but it has a massive sound, and it also has a warmth and a warmth capability that the some of the other instruments don't have. So this is a consideration of sorts. Now, since we're on the topic of whammy bars, and since I'm here with this guitar, let me talk about it a little bit. Sometimes it's referred to as a tremolo arm. That's pretty like that is that is not what this is because tremolo is an acoustic effect, and what this does is actually raises and lowers the pitch. Now, this false naming goes back to some mistakes that were made in the 50s, and we won't name any guilty parties, right? But if you see tremolo arm, then you know it's a whammy bar or a vibrato arm because it's more vibrato. Right? I'm raising and lowering the pitch. Sometimes brutally and inelegantly, and sometimes elegantly or slowly. Now, the lovely thing about some of these systems, and I said that there's inherent instability, but there are some excellent whammy bar systems which maintain their tuning. Like you can work on some instruments a lot with the vibrato arm, and the instrument starts to like decompose in terms of its stability and tuning. And this guy has pretty, he's pretty strong. So I can keep going for a while, and he's gonna pretty much maintain its tuning. If you keep doing that over a 5-minute period, so now I'm fully depressed. Pretty good. Now, if I did that in like an Ibanez, we'd more or less already be in trouble. Why? I don't want to put down the Ibanez company. If this goes on the internet, I'm in trouble, right? But you, Alexi, say yes, because you know there are guitars that would just disintegrate.
Systems for the roads.
Yeah, yeah. So, so this could be used to great advantage. Like we heard a lot, just a little bit in the Bione, and I don't really know what more to say. I mean, you could do very slow glissandi. The sustain is pretty good. Note, I have not activated a single pedal here yet. So this is just clean guitar and a pretty clean amp. So a lot of people ask, well, what's the ambitus? And the ambitus in the downward motion is pretty much carte blanche. I mean, I'm down to nothing here. So this is the classic dive bomb position. Going in the opposite direction is trickier. It often depends on how the bridge is set up. So some allow for a little more distance. How far does yours go up? Not much farther. Yeah, because if it really becomes very dangerous in a certain way if it can go farther. So if people wish or composers decide they want to go into that upward trajectory, what they would use is a bottleneck normally, and then do combinations. So it would, be often this way. Or composers would say, well, start with a halfway depressed note and then work upwards. Yeah, I mean, but it's pretty tough then to figure out, oh God, is that going to be really D natural? I mean, that is just a question of space. It's also a question of like moving a centimeter on with a whammy bar means something different for the sixth string than it means for the first string. This was, won't mention any names, but fairly well-known composer who wrote this piece and used a lot of whammy bar, and he completely miscalculated. and just thought, okay, this sort of movement is going to like affect the interval X amount, and he transferred that times 6 and found out later when the piece was being realized that, oh my God, I made all this miscalculation. So this and you already feel you feel the resistance, and that depends on the mass of the string. So it's all, and if it's all very subtly different. And if you take a six-string chord, each pitch, it's not a parallel motion. There are subtle microtonal differences between the intervals now that weren't present prior. So if people are going to use this, they need to study it very carefully. And it will also be a question of the instrument involved, okay? So it becomes rather delicate terrain, especially if you're looking for full control, and that means full control over your parameters, and it's, especially frequency, pitch parameters, okay? Yeah. Okay. What else about the guitar? They are with the solid body guitars. We'll have bridges and we won't have extension pieces, so we can't play behind the bridge. If you have some semi-hollow models or hollow body models, they have these tail pieces, and you'll have floating strings here, so that you can actually do some work here. So anybody interested in this area would have to work up here. And again, this will be different for each instrument. Let me try it just very briefly here. This is sort of super dangerous. Cool. I can't get that on this. And that's going to also be instrument specific. This could change pretty radically. So it's nice. I mean, could be nice, depending. So some people like to work up here. And I think in terms of the construction, okay, does anybody have any questions?
Just have one question regarding the whammy. On the higher strings, it's more kind of bendy, like you can go more down.
No, I would say the let's say, for me personally, I think the lower strings have more of that. I think there's more ambitus there. Where are we here? I mean, we're in an unknowable zone, and here, we're still in a recognizable zone. That's not even that far, is it? And I'm pretty far down, right? That's not very far at all. That's not, but here, yeah, we're unrecognizable zone, and the only works. It's all like this, right? It's lovely. Again, I have no effects here, so like this construction, which again is it's fairly simple. It has some potential. So yeah, I talked about the frets. Um, any other questions thus far? Just now talking about the instruments. Again, I mean, I would have been super happy to bring my Stratocaster because that's like Alexi has one of these. Do you have your guitar here? Do any of you guitar players have? Did you bring a Strato? Where are the guitar players? Did they leave already because they were bored? Um,
I'm a player, but I don't have Astra.
You don't have a Strat, but you know exactly what I'm talking about because it has a completely different character. It's a very popular instrument, yeah. There are some other things about instruments. Let's see. If I forget something, please just jump in and say you forgot to mention this. Yeah, don't be shy. Some pickups now have piezo systems. This can be cool. This can be cool because you can designate the piezo channel in any way you wish, and mix and blend the magnetic pickups with the piezo pickups. Okay, it's not standardized, but there are models that have this system. And also, people have experimented with DIY things with magnetic pickups or transducers and things like that. So that whole world, which actually Fred Frith started because he, with the help of a designer friend, he designed a pickup for up here. And what he found is that there was all this stuff happening behind his stopped finger. What we call in the other book on the acoustic guitar, some people refer to them as the back tones. Other people refer to them as the auxiliary tones. So Fred found that there was so much stuff going on here to work with that he wanted to amplify that, and so they constructed, this goes back to like the early 70s, late 60s. They constructed this device, this piezo device to amplify all the activity up here. And it's really phenomenal. Oh yeah, I didn't. Yeah. What do I want to say? Any other questions about construction or guitars? I think the last thing I want to say, and I'm not encouraging anybody to do this per se. There's one thing about the the semi-hollow guitars, and not so much the hollow body because they're really a little more limited, but the acoustic qualities of a semi-hollow guitar are sometimes super interesting, and particularly because we're normally performing in smaller type spaces, like to play with that that very intimate sound and that intimate acoustic, and have, let's say you have, and I'm sorry, I don't have anything here to demonstrate. You have an acoustic semi body, and you're just using the acoustic qualities of the guitar like this, but it would be probably twice as loud, and then you slowly bring in the volume pedal and you kind of work between those two worlds. This could be beautiful. I mean, it's been done with acoustic steel string. Matthias Spalinger wrote a fantastic piano concerto, which is only played like once every 15 years because it's so impossible both for the orchestra and the pianist. But he has an acoustic steel string guitar part, which explores this terrain between volume pedal off, so just the pure sound of the steel string acoustic guitar, and then full on. And it's a completely different beast if it's full on, meaning it's a completely different sound. And to explore all the shadings in between was done very artfully by Matthias. And I have to say personally, it's like one of these things that's sort of I want to do in my life, that I really want to get a nice semi-nice, because like the really good ones are $15,000-$20,000 now, and you can't afford them, and if they're stolen, you're really in big trouble. But it would be lovely to have one of these semi-hollows and explore that area. They also have a kind of warmth and a depth of character which can be particularly attractive. So I'm not encouraging anybody to say, "Oh, let's really pursue that idea." But I just want to say I'm like completely open to it. I have 6 electric guitars at home, and they are all solid body instruments. So yeah, it's just happened that way. But I just wanted to mention that, and you know this from your experience with jazz, that the experience with the semi-hollow and hollow body, it's completely different than with the solid body, and you know the players are yeah, they're getting something aesthetically. It's on a different portion of the spectrum, right? Generally speaking, yeah. I mean, and the thing about the acoustic, the semi-hollow, is that you could be John Scofield and go for like a kind of rocky bluesy sound on one hand, but then he can get, you know, a very soft and sweet sound. So it really has a kind of large spectrum. Okay, so that's the guitar, and that is that, you know, you may not write a piece now, you might do it in 10 years, but what I always tell people, and this is also in the book, is that you have to be in contact with your player. And if you're experimenting with a guitar and going into a rehearsal situation where the guitarist for whom you wrote the piece or who's going to premiere the piece has completely different hardware, and you're dead set on hearing what you worked on in your studio, you are bound for a very frustrating experience. And I had this. I went through this once. It was a crisis situation in a pretty sensitive area with somebody now who's fairly well known. This person has a professorship, and they were much younger then, and they wrote this small ensemble piece, and this person did their homework at home with a very specific guitar. And then we met at this spot where we were rehearsing, and it's like, I'm not happy. And then I would have to spend hours with this person in my studio trying to replicate what it is he had imagined in his studio. And I mean, my colleague said, "You're crazy for spending all this time, you know, giving that person all this time." But I was really trying to accommodate them and realize what their intentions were, and we never got it. We never got to that thing because what this person had at home was so fundamentally different than what I had along with me, and I wasn't at home. So there's that danger, and that I'm underscoring that only to really, let's say, emphasize this notion of communication, that you're working pretty closely with the people for whom you're composing, and later on to be open for the possibility that it might sound pretty radically different in a way that, for instance, Lachamann's Toccatina, okay, you know, if it was played on a Stradivarius, although that would probably never be played on a Stradivarius, I mean, it might have something different, but, you know, Toccatina, if it's played on an instrument that was built in the 1950s or a modern violin or I don't know, there's a spectrum of instruments, you know, between what, 10 and 30,000. Toccatina's gonna more or less sound like Toccatina, right? But it's not that way with the electric guitar, unfortunately. So, I mean, in a way, we are, I wouldn't say handicapped, but it's a very challenged zone for all of us. So I think people should be super aware of that. It starts here, but it extends to everything around me too. Okay. You know what? I I'm sort of Alexi's going to do a thing on pedals. And I'm not scared about this, but I have some like cool objects here, which I want. You know, the topic came up in the book presentation, and I think we should just like look at this this zone a little bit, if you don't mind, and I'll indulge. It's a lot of fun. This area, and I think it's where a lot of the interesting experimentation is going on, and in the history of electric guitar music, if let's say we go back to the 60s, it's where some of the most bizarre things have like happened and stuff that we never knew any of this could happen before. And it involved, you know, the creative powers of a few interesting personalities. And I think it's, in a way, it started with something, you know, with the Cagean idea of the preparation, right? So very much sort of the post-Cagean idea. And Keith Rowe and Fred Frith used these things, we call them alligator clips, you know, and they would apply them, especially chosen spots, and get a gong sound. That can change now pretty radically, depending on where I put it. We get a different sort of pitch. Now, what did I say at the beginning? That everything is going to change. And so even now, like, I'm doing the switching here. So I can have a concerto for like one gong and tone control knobs, right? Yeah, I mean, you really can you can like focus on one little thing and create this universe if you want. So like preparation is a really cool thing. And let me show you what happens if you just place the preparation on the upper string, a little more delicate here. Oh shit, come on, stand. Okay, there. Hello. I have something different here, which is gonna make it work. Well, this is a failure. Okay, you can fire me. Yeah, they work better here. Let me show you something else. Stupid. Okay, there are these very special paper clips. Have you seen any of these? These round ones. They're great. This is gonna work, I promise you. They're really beautiful, and they come in different sizes too, and different masses. Whoops, that flew off. That can happen too, but I'll put it on the B string. So any movement obviously is going to have an effect on. That's pretty dangerous, but that was a nice pop, right? See some, yeah, that could be pretty rowdy. So already now I'm having a little concerto here for paperclip. just left. So, yeah, I had one piece where the composer did multiple preparations, and he was very specific about where these things belonged and sent a photo, and we did measurements and found the spots, and then we have a chorus of beautiful. So if I just add some reverb, could be cool. Here's slight delay. Yeah. Okay. I didn't want to start using effects, but that can be very sort of atmospheric. So the preparation, that was one thing. And then there were other sorts of objects, various objects that people have used other time. Let me show another preparation. It involves, you can thread a needle, literally take a needle, a knitting needle, and thread the instrument. So a different kind of preparation. We can do like multiple sort of preparations. So like it involves a sort of certain amount of trial and error, right? Before you find something really of interest. The other thing is there's this gong thing that can happen here too, like that. If you just set that in motion. So another idea. And then people were thinking of ways to beat the instrument. So you wouldn't just hit it with a plectrum, but you'd slam it with a linear ruler. And you might, slide with it. So like Sarah Nemtsov, she, in some of her early works, take the linear and do that, or slam it like that, because I can't get anything, but that's pretty incisive. Even like if I start changing the pickup structure, you get a much different sort of effect, right? You can hear. That's with the filtering all the way down. This is filtering up. That's pretty strong stuff, right? Here, in terms of long objects, this is something completely different. This is serrated. Okay, so some of you, are there any percussionists here? Nah. The Lachemann ensemble pieces where he has the percussionists, they have these wooden sticks that they're cut, and they're kind of quote serrated, and he would draw the sticks against the mallet instrument, and they created this wonderful perforated sound. And so I don't know if he was the first, but my friend Ming Cao decided in a piece for acoustic guitar actually to take a serrated rod. Now this is going to sound pretty rough, but and he did the most beautiful thing on acoustic guitar. I was a little scared to have this kind of object on a concert instrument, which costs $10,000, but he did this very gentle thing. And of course, wherever you strike on the strings, you're gonna have a different effect, but it can be very lovely. And now I'm switching the pickups here. Here, tone control knob. Cool, right? And this can get really devastating, though. I mean, I've really like blown up places doing with distortion. Yeah.
Is it sharp?
It's serrated, and at the end it's not sharp. You just have to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here.
Like a mold. Wow. Yeah, sure.
And I mean, if you go into Bauhaus, they have different thicknesses, right, of these rods, and they'll just like cut a portion for you. So it's cool. We could be, you and I should do a duo one day. We should each have one of these, and we'll just make noise for an hour, right? Yeah. Okay. That's our thing. Okay. When are we doing that? As soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the idea originally was this piece was written in the '90s by Ming, but I thought, God, it's beautiful. You want to try it? You could demonstrate it on your guitar. Yeah, do it. Amir Khan is going to show. Do you mind?
No.
Here, do it very gently. Yeah, this was when Ming was. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty. Yeah, and it has a much more alienating effect if you do it on an acoustic guitar. It also looks kind of dangerous. Okay, so what else do I have here? I have have a few things. I have these prepared super balls. So this is now getting. Okay, this is not cliched or anything, but it's been used before. Now the percussionists perfected all of this. And so we could get nice things. It sounds lovely on a guitar, on an acoustic guitar, of course. This requires yeah. There's that hump here, which is lovely. Hitting that hump. And I did know of a piece that it went in two directions. I don't know if I'm going to get it now. Yeah, I don't think. Anyway, so that can also be used, but sparingly, I would say. Yeah, that was better. And sometimes you don't even think about what you're doing, and you just do something, and then something amazing happens. Like, it will happen by accident, and I love that. Like that, just. And I just want to say, I'm not sure that would transfer to the other guitar. I'm serious, and I don't want to try it and be embarrassed. Yeah, cool. I have a tremolo on. You can hear it. Now it's not working. Yeah, okay. Good. That wasn't so fantastic. I have this steel thing, because this is obviously real interference here. with the pickups. And so this could get quite nice. Very gentle, of course, if you want it. There's nothing on here. I can put a little bit. I just increase the distortion slightly. And now I'm changing the pickup configuration. I'm dampening here in my left arm. If I leave it open, you get that resonance of the open strings, right? And if I dampen, then there's no resonance. So let me just demonstrate one thing. See, I just froze that. And I could do something else, of course. That wasn't so beautiful, though. Let's see. Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. Pretty cool. Okay, so steel wool, any sort of like sponges, things like that. All this stuff that has, it's not a smooth surface, right? Like the smooth surfaces, that's not going to elicit really amazing sort of vibrations from the strings. But this sort of stuff will. Okay, where are we now? Let's look at these coggle things first briefly, because they're pretty interesting. So Coggle had this idea. Where is the holder? Oh, that's bad. Okay, I'm missing the holder. But anyway, so this is kind of gong-like, and he was playing around. You remember the score. So he was using it in a way like a bottleneck on one hand, right? A lot of glissandi. And then striking. And your response would obviously vary depending on the type of triangle you have and the beater. So you know that if you've written for percussion that there are various sizes of triangles. You don't want a massive one. This is a pretty good sized one. Now, this isn't really super reverb today. This is more subtle. Yeah. Here's without. Here's a lot of reverb. Some delay in that. Yeah, so I mean, again, now I'm just sort of slowly introducing some of these very basic effects, but you could see how, the use of a foreign object can suddenly, in a way, transformed or varied, amplified. There are numerous, let's say, ways to describe what's happening here, but you could do some very nice things by adding certain effects to these actions. I demonstrated, I guess, right towards the end, when Alexi was here. So I'm missing the mallet. I had a plastic mallet. So you needed like a xylophone mallet, right, with the plastic. Now, I just added some tremolo. Delay. That's a pretty long reverb. Yeah, I like that. So, I mean, this is just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of tremens. And yeah, I just think it's fabulous what he did. Okay, so that's tremens. Let's see. I did a piece last year for accordion and electric guitar, and I think I stupidly only brought one tuning fork. This is made by a company in southern Germany. This thing is €50. It's just a regular tuning fork, but it's of substance, and it's 432. And Marguerite was very clever. Because it can vibrate at both ends. And then she used tremolo and varied the tremolo speeds. And it's very cool because she set up this kind of sectional thing where the tremolo speeds were varied. So I would shift from very slow to faster and faster. And the accordion did this sort of like rapid movements. And then in between we had these held sections. So it was just like drone. Maybe with some reverb, maybe not so heavy reverb. Her name is Marguerite Brown. She's one of Michelle's students in San Diego. And it's very beautiful. And she was very clever in the way she did this. So, yeah, this was the first time I ever did something like this. Yeah, so that's possible. So all this, a whole array of things that you can do. Now, two kind of, let's say they're not cliched, but they have been used often with acoustic guitars and electric guitars. Here's a regular fan. Now, I haven't even, touch the string. Yeah, I think we need some fuzz, right? This is a heavy overdrive. Yeah. So that's just a switch. Now I'm just using that pickup switch, which is changing. It's now in the neck pickup situation, bridge, obviously, because the fan is over the bridge pickup. Yeah. So this is kind of cool, and this has been used in installations, like with multiple acoustic guitars, where people put a fan against the guitar and, get the symphony of guitar sounds. And then you get a perforated sound here. Yes. Lomatelli, that was the name that came up earlier. Well, in one of his pieces, he decided to use an electric razor, and the fuzz is on, or the distortion. Doesn't work on that pickup, but here. Yeah, that's nicer, single coil. Wow, that's double coil. Ah, just learned something. So that's pretty nice drone, right? Pretty good. Like do my beard later. Okay. We're almost through the whole kit and caboodle. I have bottlenecks, but I think they're all pretty well known to you, right? Like, so not sure if that needs any demonstrating. This is the classic, the EBO. You heard Phil Niblock's work can only be done with EBO, so the so-called electronic bow. And this is working on a feedback principle. I guess, I mean, this can't be new to anybody here, I imagine not. So that's the sound. And we can move and create slightly different textures, work with the volume, with the tone control. We could get something nastier here. A little warmer here, a little more of the fundamental. This is, it's in a way overused, and people are finding, though, always new ways to work with it somehow. I mean, we do have this, like, stuttering thing, which I guess Rebecca Saunders did earlier. And then she did this distortion thing, but that's better on the steel string acoustic, right? That. Yeah, it's cool. That. And of course, I mean, something very often done is to use the EBO in combination with slide. So if you want these long glissandi, this is the way that it's often done. It gets dangerous sometimes with the octave displacement. But we see this, Olga Neuwirth does this all the time. In the orchestra textures, what she'll do is she'll have a very slow glissando, and what it does, I guess from the distance, it starts to smear the harmony, because you get this slowly rising thing coming from the electric guitar, and it's interfering seriously with the rest of the ensemble. It's very effective in a kind of large acoustic space. So, yeah, the EBO is something definitely to explore. I guess the last object per se I have here, it's a kind of capo. It's called the spider capo, and it's kind of cool. I haven't seriously employed it in a piece yet, because I don't think anybody's like quite figured out the way, how to use it effectively. But what a capo is, normal capo. It, you raise you basically transpose the tuning by the amount given at the fret. So in this case, let's see if I got it. It takes a while to set up. Yeah, that doesn't sound so great. And it's called a spider because each string has its own designated thing. So see, I can open up individual strings. See how I'm doing that? It's kind of cool, and it's just a flick of a finger. Not bad. And then stop it again. It's what we say finicky. How do you transcribe finicky? It's a little fragile. But it can, I think, be used in a pretty cool way, depending. But you know, in terms of capos, it's a nice little development. So I just thought this is a kind of progress thing. You know, for decades and decades, everybody had their capo. And, you know, you transposed up a third, major third, minor third, sometimes F sharp. And then they developed this thing where you can, like, open up certain strings. So it could be used in a kind of cool way. Okay, I think the foreign object section for today is, okay, how are we doing for time? Oh, God, not bad, but I'm, like, barely scratching the surface. I brought my little box of plectrum because on occasion somebody says, we use a metal plectrum, and I say, okay, or we use a jazz plectrum. And so, like, the way the metal is pretty sharp in comparison to the jazz plectrum. Now this is a I need a round jazz pick. Where are my round jazz picks? Here's one round. Oh, it has a destroyed surface. Sorry! Don't fire me yet. This is nice. But this metal thing has an effect. This is bone. Each one it's very subtle, but they do have different response. I also have some wooden ones. People use coins. I mean, anything to pluck the instrument. I have a different kind of metal one, a heavier one. This is very thin. This is thicker metal. Kind of cool, right? And you could bounce around, and the plectrum is really an amazing thing. So we could start to get really nice stuff happening here, obviously. Like turning the volume, turning the tone control all the way down, sorry. Yeah, so I mean, not similar to what was happening here, but obviously I have much more control with something like that. So, I mean, I think the moral of the story is that these things, let's take the heavy wooden one. I'm going to do same thing. That's the metal one. So it's eliciting slightly different upper partials. You can hear that. Yeah. So I think, oftentimes composers don't even talk about type of plectrum, but on occasion, I've seen scores where the composer says metal plectrum for this, and then you look more closely at the materials and you say, yeah, that makes sense. But I think for the most part, the composers don't encroach on that terrain. I think in part because they know that it's a very personal decision of the guitarist what he, she, or they are using in terms of plectrum, if they're using a plectrum. And that gets to my next topic, which basically involves, some of us were trained classical guitarists, Alexei, myself, also some of the really fine players in new music right now, new music arena. And so they bring a little bit of a different skill set to electric guitar playing. That might be at the expense of, let's say, having played in metal bands as teenagers. I know some people that have done both. I didn't have that metal experience. But what this means is that there aren't too many ramifications to the left hand, but I think every classical guitarist would tell you that they have a certain agility in the left hand that rock or people with experience with rock music or jazz music don't have. And that just has to do with our training. And similarly, but maybe something with more ramifications is this whole business of the right hand. And if you know about classical guitar technique, then you know that we spend, hours, as I was talking to Alexei about, learning arpeggio patterns and practicing them until our parents and our sisters and brothers became mad. And there are dozens and dozens of arpeggio techniques and combinations using just the four fingers of the right hand. And that is something that is not at the disposal of someone that just grew up playing with a plectrum. Now they could do some pretty wild stuff, but we have this ability. So I mean, if I just take something like that and then do, you can't do that with a plectrum. Okay, that's a pretty banal figure, right? Just a sextuplet. But it's kind of opening up a terrain. I don't know if you had that experience, but you would maybe confirm that this is not, you could take this chord, and then I could color it like this, and you don't have that with the plectrum. Now, what's really cool, or semi-cool, and not everybody will do this, is I had kind of a limited flamenco thing, so I could do all of this stuff, all of the various flamenco, what we call rasgado, and most there's some guitarists that would never do this because they don't have the strong fingernails. But I think that's kind of cool, and you can't get any of that with a plectrum. I mean, you can do certain things with a plectrum, but there are certain patterns here that I can do, which then come into use later if I'm doing more experimental type things, and then adding. so the whole right hand business, and this is our next improvisation. Instead of the rods, we're gonna just use flamenco scrubs. Yeah, so I mean, um, it's maybe impressive on one level, but it's just a kind of thing. Well, first of all, that we grew up with, but it has nothing to do with commercial rock or jazz playing, and so I feel free to do that. And if anybody wants to incorporate that, that's not a problem. I could do this really literally all day, and I'm not worried about my fingernails. So that's kind of a nice thing. I do want to maybe veer off for 1 minute because I was chatting with one of the colleagues here about like I don't know anything about the guitar. I'm a string player, but like the guitar is scary. And like just thinking about how I'm going to compose for this. And, my suggestion was, first of all, to go here because Ming and I talk about ways in, and mostly involving the geography of the fretboard, which is intimidating, granted, and it has to do with the scordatura and the way this sort of asymmetrical but sort of non-logical way the fretboard is set up. And we talk about certain approaches to the instrument, and Michelle and I, we had really little space afforded to us to do. I mean, we do talk about basics, but we didn't also want to create redundancies with this book. So if you're somebody that like, oh, I have no idea, like I have nowhere to start, and yeah, it's tuned in this kind of crazy way, I would say this might be a decent way to sort of start. And that also has to do with the right hand and right hand class, technique, like classical guitar technique, tremolandi, which people also, this is a classical guitar. We own this technique, and this you can't do with a plectrum, right? It's just PAMI, pulgar, annular, medio, and decio. How was that? Not bad. Okay. And it goes faster. I'm not in shape right now, and I don't want to embarrass myself too much. But you get the sort of classical recuerdos from Tarrega. And why am I saying this? Yeah, so we cover all of these basic techniques, left hand, right hand, and we extend in the electric guitar book a bit, extend things. Because, I mean, like the bend on a classical guitar is a fairly limited terrain, right? But on the electric guitar, it's really kind of cool what we can do. And with the sustain and just add, and maybe. So we're in a different world now than we are with the classical guitar. And we spend time basically picking up on the thread or threads here and extending them. That means what techniques were or are possible even in the avant-garde world, and how do they transfer to this instrument. So like for the novices, I think this is still valid, and we have a second printing now, so like the stuff that wasn't quite great the first time around, we corrected. Yeah, so I ventured off. Any questions so far?
A question about the red object that sounds like a gong.
This. No.
One of the first objects that.
Oh, you mean the alligator clip?
Yeah, exactly. They are designed for guitar.
No.
We
These
can
are
find it.
no. These are
I never saw them.
these.
And I
You
would
can
like
get
to-
this in any electrical like shop.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's a regular sort of device.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Good to
you know these, right? I mean, we call them alligator clips, right? I mean, anybody that does DIY electronics knows about these things, so they're kind of cool. Okay. So I said I can go basically to 4. Anybody that needs to leave, do so politely, quietly. I'm going to get into this very briefly, if I may, and just kind of do an introduction. Alexei will go into it with much more depth, I guess, in 2 weeks, where he dedicates an entire workshop to pedals. So, let's see. What in the book? This is a copy of the manuscript, actually, maybe with some sort of nasty comments from our editor. And I'm in the gain stage area here. Oh, there she is. She's in the right-hand column. Anyway, so you could see how things are lining up. And I had that example earlier. Overdrive, distortion, fuzz. This is a tricky area, which I don't know. You should do a whole seminar. We should do a whole seminar on distortion and overdrive and fuzz. Like, just take 2 hours and talk about it, because it's lovely. First of all, it belongs to the electric guitar. Like, this is in a way the imprimatur of the rock sound. It began first with overdriving the tubes of a tube amp, and then turned into something more auxiliary, and that is that boxes were used to help drive the tubes, and then work with the waves in different areas. So one thing that Michelle and I do is we spend a certain amount of time trying to explain the differences between what's overdrive, what's distortion, what's fuzz. And I just want to demonstrate 2 pedals here. One has a gain, what we call gain staging. It means stacking up gain effects in a way to thicken the sound. And what I have here, take that out. So what I have here is like a kind of 2-in-1, which first begins with a very, just a little bit of overdrive. Sorry for my very poor, I'm not going to imitate metal or anything like that. I'll get Alexi for that. So I'm just adding a touch of dirt. What we'd call overdrive, right? And then it gets into something a little nastier at the next stage. So now I have both activated. Now, the thing about this pedal is I can switch the directional thing. I can like swap them about. They have levels of volume, levels of drive. There are tone controls here too. I can regulate the amount of clean signal with the dirty signal. So these pedals right now are fairly sophisticated also in the amount of knob twiddling that you can do with them. Just alone, it can get pretty nasty, the right side. And now if I add on top, I thicken it. If I take the right side off, we have something like that. You can already hear. So this is one level of gain staging. This is the single distortion. This is quiet. Again. So this is kind of neat overdrive plus distortion. And both these sides, the left side and right side, have rather different characters. You just notice that in very basic settings. People like to talk about fuzz, which is a little bit more of a kind of specialized and very dangerous area, also in terms of extreme form we talk about. And I have kind of a beloved device here, which is a kind of incendiary device depending on what you do with it. But it's more of that sound. It's pretty different than, and the waveform is much different. And it's at a pretty sort of early drive setting, and I think we could do something with this too. And I could move it into feedback very quickly, which is nice too, because people think of feedback as needing to happen at these grandiose levels, but we're at a spot now where we could create it pretty randomly and at a low volume level. I'm not gonna do the whole thing here, but you feel the power. So that's more fuzz as opposed to overdrive. Okay. And the next classic thing on category is what we call the modulation category. And in terms of guitar sounds, this involves classic chorus sound. And that's the flange. Here's the chorus. Here's the flange. And it's nice to do this behind the overdrive, of course. I don't think anybody's going to write a piece for that. But so this is basically in everyone's arsenal. Of course, you could do rather intense things with this sometimes. And this is a really beloved pedal. One of my vintage pedals from TC Electronics, which goes back. This is an early iteration and has very beautiful things in it. Yeah. I have nothing else activated. This is just this one pedal. So that's kind of cool. So that's that one area of modulation. And then we do work with ring mod on occasion. We heard this in the Murai. And I have a Muga Fuga at home, the real thing. That you know the Muga Fuga. Anyway, it's this big device, and it's the kind of it's the classic ring mod, but then Zvex did a smaller version, and I can step through various areas. this is done, and we just need to tune it and work with it very carefully. It can be utilized very elegantly if one wants to. So that also belongs to the modulation, and then I have bit crushers, which you know from electronic music. So this is really literally off the line, as it were. I just got it. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So we slowly get into an area where this might have nothing to do with my technique and my advancement here as a kind of master of the instrument, quote unquote, and the guitar starts to function more as a generator, as something to it's in a way just giving impulses to various devices in order to look for and create new and compelling. Bye. See you. Be in touch. And some of these then pedals and effects contribute to that state, and we could do a lot of knob twiddling and then suddenly be in a completely different world with either one or two or multi combination of such pedals. So I have numerous such devices in my collection, and yeah, so I just wanted to say there's this whole area of specialization, especially with bit crushing right now, where we could be an experimentalist, and I mean, Alexei will show that this can work in combination with synthesizers, and you just do really nice knob twiddling and you get some really awesome sounds. Okay, so there's that element too, and then the classic things in terms of, let's say, talking about time-based effects, and I demonstrated some of that. So at the end you have reverbs, and you have many different types, of course, and I like to add, this is a shimmer effect, which is really cheesy sounding, and a little cliched, but these devices can be extraordinarily sophisticated, and offer huge amounts of possibilities. What do you think? You never heard me do anything like this, did you? So it's very beautiful. The thing is that there are now dozens of engineers around the world that are creating these amazing devices, and they're using their creative powers in such an amazing way, and coming up with really unique things. And I've basically fallen in love with this entire domain, and these things are extraordinarily expensive for the most part, but they're helping to, in a way, move things forward and help us be creative and create stuff that we haven't yet, heard. So these guys are from Athens, and they created a harmonic tremolo. And this is nice in combination maybe with some reverb and shimmer. Russian. And I have various delay devices at my effect, and this has a few nice things because it has something called the warp mode. So that requires a little bit of fancy footwork, but you get to learn it a bit, and it has a hold function, but it also has things like the classic reverse delay. Yeah, so, and this I demonstrated, this is, I could freeze, it's a sampler, it just freezes a certain texture, can hold on to that, and play above. Most guitarists have this in their arsenal. Yeah, and then, part of the art and part of the fun comes in how we combine these things, and not only that, but how we order them. And there are, let's say, quote traditional ways, and let's say more conventional ways to order them. And people talk about modulation, distortion, and then putting all the time-based things at the end of the chain. But what really then becomes interesting is when you start swapping things in and out and changing the orders in ways that are a little more unorthodox. And of course, in Macs, this is super easy to do. Here with hardware, it's a little more cumbersome, and I don't have a proper switcher for that. But it's really nice to consider, and I guess Alexi's going to really get into it in 2 weeks and talk about ways of combining and the interaction. This is like there's a kind of alchemy involved in working with analog pedals, and just a small adjustment here or there can mean the difference between something that's flat and something that really glows. So this is key, and I've only played through one amp, and this is, I think, maybe probably the last thing I want to talk about. And that is that a lot of guitarists, especially in the commercial arena, if you see rock concerts or even jazz concerts, you see not just one but multiple amplifiers, and they're having well, how do I want to say this? They have different functions. And there are different ways that guitarists play with projecting their sound. And there's some of us that are experimenting too now with creating stereo image. And I just thought, as a kind of, we'll assume this is going to cooperate. You heard a lot of sound coming from this one amp, and I thought, as a kind of farewell, that I would show and try to show what happens if I split the signal and maybe send some of the time-based effects to one amp and leave the other amp either dry or a little dirty, and just give you that experience of, first of all, having that space created here. I need your patience a little bit, but I think that this might be a kind of nice way to let's say conclude the discussion. Now, bear with me for just 1 minute. Hey, Jason, is there? I see now that I might need 1/4 inch. Do you have 1/4
Yes.
inch jack here?
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find one. Can it be? It has to be.
Anything,
Okay. Let me
anything. Thank you.
See. Yeah.
So I just, gonna do one thing. What I do here is I just use a very simple splitter. And so I send a direct signal here, I mean from the guitar directly in here, and then I split it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send one portion to the time-based effects, and this will go out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send the other, I think, Jason, I don't need you. We're going to send the other signal here. And I'm going to channel this. This is all the modulation. And I probably don't need his help. I think I got it. Sorry, Jason. It's going to look a little awkward, but I'm going to channel this into this amplifier that I would never be caught dead normally using, but I think it's going to help demonstrate what I want to demonstrate. Yeah, there it's on. Thank you. I got it all. Thank you. Super. Oh, yeah, no, this is going to help. But you know what? I just reconfigured something. So now, if I had a more advanced switcher, I could make an A-B and you can hear the differences. But I just opened the room a little bit. I think you can hear. And now what I'm going to do is I'm putting the time-based stuff on one side. Oh, I know what's happening. Oh, yeah. And now what if I do so I mean, this is pretty rudimentary stuff, but I just changed the whole room, right? And I just did this in a split second. If I had maybe 10 more minutes, it would be a little bit more elegantly set up. But you hear suddenly the addition of the other amp and that split signal. If I just turn all this. Here's all the wet stuff, and let's say I just add and now the dirty stuff comes here slowly. This is annoying, right? adds this just reverb. So I don't know how you perceive what's going on in the room, but it seems suddenly from where I'm sitting pretty massive sounding. This is what they call wet dry. We talk a lot about this in the book. And this is now, how we say, I wouldn't say it's normal because other players are doing wet, dry, wet. And so they're really then going in completely different sort of acoustic terrain with that middle signal really just being the clean signal from the guitar and just mixing and matching these signals can result in some pretty wild sounding stuff. I mean, if I take that out but have chorus. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, it's much really satisfying just to feel all of that. And I guess Alexei's also had this experience. And when you're in an orchestra and you do a lot of ensemble playing, and you realize when you bring an electric guitar in that situation, you know, the projection of the sound, it has that unidirectional quality and this sort of very sharp outward, like strahl, you know, this light. And just by adding that second amp, you open up a little bit, and I find it's a really wonderful way to blend a little bit more effectively with Gesundheit, with those around me. So that was a very brief introduction to wet dry, but I think you get a little bit of an idea. It requires work here, you know, setting the reverb properly and getting all of this stuff set up, but acoustically, it's pretty compelling and can be striking. I've done certain pieces actually with 3 amps. What I like to do is there's some pieces that use very heavy pitch shifting where you have to go very low, like they have pitch shifters that go down not just 1 but 2 octaves. And the thing is that a regular guitar amp doesn't have that lower register. And I've often used a bass amp and split the signal so that when these sections come with the pitch shifting and double octave and things like that in the lower register, that the bass amp suddenly takes over and has that command of the room at that moment, and then adds what's necessary. And I've gotten really good results with that. So I think that probably for the pieces that emerge next year, we'll be talking about what possibilities there might be in splitting the signal and getting a stereo effect at the very least. So I think I'm going to maybe, that was the third component. So we did this here. I think for an introduction that might be okay. And now I'm willing to field questions from anybody that wishes to answer question. Or are we done?
Maybe in new music, like in this genre, which pedals would you say are like the most vital ones, like the ones that you cannot not have?
Yeah, I think this question is a good one. Yeah, what do we need normally? We need a volume pedal. We need some sort of distortion or overdrive. I would say overdrive probably. We need maybe some sort of modulation pedal, chorus, although you don't hear it a lot right now. I think a lot of people are using the freeze. Um, we need some sort of ambient sound, so some reverb thing at the end, and maybe some delay. But yeah, I think these categories that we outline, I think, there are maybe three, four, five basic, right? Would you say three, four, or five basic areas which like would be an entryway. It involves a certain investment, but I think definitely one, two, yeah, delay is used. Things like vibrato and tremolo, you will see them in the scores, but they're not popping up regularly. But you will see like distortion popping up um, quite frequently. No bit crushers. Fuzz is a very dangerous area. I mean, it wasn't built for basically our music. Seriously. So that only comes to play later. I guess pitch shifting is sometimes asked for, like octave higher, octave lower. So, yeah, I mean, I think when I started, first of all, using the racks, right? The multi-effect processors. And I think that also, instead of buying individual pedals, like some people could consider just buying, I don't know, the Line 6 is what, 700 now? 800 euro? It depends on which one.
Could be different. So many people using quadcopters, which could be pretty expensive
Yeah.
to start. But Line 6 Stomp, to have it for start and to explore everything a bit and to have it as a main sound. Actually, still the Line 6 HX Stomp is the main of my sound, and to add some pedals.
Yeah.
And for sure, you need to have really good volume pedal and expression pedal.
Yeah.
It should be really sensitive to it because in multi-effect processors, it's
Yeah.
mostly looks like shit.
Yeah, yeah. So like
yeah, freeze.
yeah. So the multi-effect processors actually can be very effective ways to, first of all, learn how all the effects are functioning, and they offer the microscopic way of programming, right? I mean, you can really program delays by the absolute millisecond and go from 0 to 1200 milliseconds in increments. And you can mix and combine and shift things around, and there's an equalizer and a mixer. So it's really a nice way in. And it's, I think, then maybe only later when you start, or if, I mean, if you start becoming interested in things like the analog world, that this sort of pedal collecting may become relevant. But like, if you've heard Alexei play, that central part of the sound is still pretty convincing, and he uses that Line 6 really well. So who's going to argue with that? And I mean, I just think in terms of, again, the whole thing about learning how the instrument is responding to these effects and how the effect is coloring the sound. I think to work in that digital domain is it's very user friendly. So that would be my suggestion. And then those stomp boxes, I mean, those multi-effect processors, they're pretty sophisticated right now, and they have much more than actually you'll ever need at the moment, and especially as a sort of entryway into that whole world. So yeah, that's how I would answer that question.
A few minutes ago, you talked about the bit crusher.
Yeah.
So what does it actually do to the signal?
Well, it's sampling and then degrading, and there's some delay in there. And I literally just brought this back from the States and haven't had time to do it. But I mean, it's sampling, and then I have different modes on this. I'm happy to. Front a bit.
Just the
shut this off. Oh, you know what? Sorry. Wow. Oh, I know. Sorry. I fucked it up. There, sorry. There's obliterate and degrade. So this is obliterating, and there's different sampling modes. And different delays on it, right? Now I'm changing the bits. So, yeah. That's the degrade mode. Yeah, and I think some of it is random, from what I've been told. But I like literally just open this up, and I thought it'd be cool to bring it down here. I mean, I think Bit Crusher this is a topic in electronic music. There's no doubt. So, yeah, exactly. Oh my God, yeah. I think it's going to take some time. But it's nice. It sounds really nice, I think. I don't like the sound of the amp, but yeah. There's a lot of experimentation that still needs to be done, but a lot of possibilities. Any other questions? Are we good? So I have a few of my composers here, right? You too, right? Okay. So we'll be in touch. I'm here basically every 2 weeks. I can't bring all my material every 2 weeks, but we can meet on occasion and just get this discourse going. Are you both working with Stefan? Do you work with whom? With Mark. Okay, both of you.
Yeah,
Oh.
also studying. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. Say hello from me. Okay, yeah, he's special. He's very special.
Is there any electric guitar piece for Mark?
No.
No.
No, I think he's scared of it. But Amilcar has the duo now, the guitar duo. It's quite lovely, and I don't know. I'm not trying to convince him to do it, but he's got a duo player, his duo partner coming in from Mexico City at the end of the spring. So maybe we can get them to do it. Yeah,
Good idea.
yeah. It's
Mark Andres?
pardon?
By Mark Andres?
Yeah,
He has a duo
yeah,
for classical.
yeah. 2 acoustic guitars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 Okay, should we call it a day? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks.